This sort of late upload from what I mentioned in my last video is one of the few problems that I encountered over the course of this week. A few days ago, a friend that has been hosting my website through his server came up to me and said, "Hey Eric, I'm shutting down this server and I need you to be moving your website." And since then, I haven't really been in that big of a panic. However, it does require me to learn a little bit about web hosting and transferring my website from where it was over to this new web host provider that I've got a subscription with. And that process is still in the works, which is why my website is still down at the time of this recording. Along with the fact that I've taken on a writing course, learning to become a better writer, and that has its own demands as well on top of that. So making this video is again really late with that, and yeah, there's just been a lot of things that are just happening right now that are all happening in this 1 week. So that's been a bit of a struggle. But through the bumps in the road, there were a lot of lessons and experiences that I've gained from this. For one, my overall experience has been, these exercises are no joke. They are kind of brutal. If you guys have been watching any of my Instagram videos, I talk a little bit about just how brutal these kinds of exercises are, or at least the fact that they're kicking my ass. But at the same time, I still have a smile on my face, I'm still happy, I'm still energized. And that attitude is kind of what I've been learning throughout this entire process, is that even though I've skipped out on some exercises over the course of this week, I felt really bad about it, and I reminded myself hey, you need to be doing these exercises. And even though I didn't really do them, there was still that innate desire to do these and to really push myself. And I know that when I skipped those days, the next day I was saying hey Eric, you need to do these, just go and do these. And that's what I did, even though it did kick my ass and I was panting, I was sweating, but it felt really good. But the other things that I was learning was this system that I'm developing that I didn't even quite notice that much. And it's basically just a system of breaking things down into smaller chunks, as well as tackling things one step at a time, and really just affirming yourself, reaffirming yourself, and building yourself up. Those strategies have really helped me out a lot in pushing myself to at least exercise 4 times out of the 7, which is great. I'm really happy that I've been able to push myself to go that far and to develop this system that I have. And this system is really core because so many of us play up problems in our head, and we inflate these issues to the point where we just feel really overwhelmed. And this is something that, even though a lot of us are aware of it, we still do it anyway. Again, I experienced that over this week. There was all sorts of problems or all sorts of things that I needed to do, and I was like, man, I don't really want to be doing these exercises. I want to be focusing on something else instead and not worry about these exercises. And that's exactly what I did. And I just bought into that excuse without any kind of real debate, compared to the times where I just said hey, you just have to do these exercises, you have to do that, and you're gonna feel really good about that. And that's really what's important here, is that we play up these problems a lot bigger in our heads when they're really not. It's really that simple. It's really simple. These exercises that I'm doing, while there's so much of them, I realize that it only takes me about an hour and a half to do the exercises plus my walk. It doesn't really take me a whole lot of time. And I know that if I didn't take breaks, if I did all of these things in one kind of sitting, or took breathers or after like I finished the entire exercise, then it would be going by a lot faster. But I'm not at that point just yet. I still need to be building myself up a little bit further. But for now, really an hour and a half is not that bad. It really isn't. It's not as time consuming as I play it up in my head to be, or it's not as demanding or as daunting as I play it up to be. And that's where the rest of my system comes into play, where I'm taking all of these baby steps, where I'm taking one step at a time. I always take the time to remind myself just how many I have to do and just how quickly I can actually do them. Like I have been doing up to this point, where I've been slowly building up to 100, where I'm tacking on an extra 10 every 5 days, and that sort of stuff. That again, like, kind of leads into like the whole easiness of these exercises, and that's what I've been doing with these exercises, with me tackling and me tackling these 100, where I just tell myself like, hey, you have to do 25 of these. That's all you have to do, and you have to do that like 3 more times. That's really not that bad. And I find that these kinds of systems can really help people with tackling all sorts of other problems that they have in their lives. And I find that this sort of system that I have, like this kind of like easy like breakdown system that I have, can really help me out with my other problems, which is why web hosting and trying to learn how to move one website over to this new web host is not as daunting as it can be, because I know for a lot of people that can be very stressful, and it's just a huge pain and a huge nightmare to move a website from an entire server. But for me, like, I haven't really been panicking that much. It hasn't really been that bad, because I recognize that it's really not that bad as I play it up to be, and that there are some easier ways to break things down, and I can always be looking for help. I can always be looking for support. And I think that's what's most important from taking these kind of large challenges or looking at these big problems, is to recognize that we might be playing up the problem a lot more than we think we are, and that there's always support, there's always ways to make things a lot easier in our lives when we actually take the time to look around and even just getting into the whole process and working it through. And that's really what's important here. And that's one of the big things that I've learned from this experiment, and I'm going to keep on pushing forward, doing my 100, because I know that it's going to get easier and easier every single time that I do these.